girls, finally your time. Some strange things happening in studio. I've got two people here, John and Lou.
How are
Hi
you
everyone,
doing?
how are you doing?
We're good. And
Yeah,
you,
no,
are you?
I'm lekker. It's just
We weren't expecting to be here.
No,
Okay,
we weren't.
so let's just deal with the first thing.
Yes.
So if you were expecting Aslam, I don't know if you know, but in Johannesburg it's been raining cats and dogs. Traffic is really bad, but he's about 2 minutes away. So
SPCA must be going crazy.
yeah, no,
Really? Come on, right?
really, no, it's not like that. That's a figure of speech, Llewellyn.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
we worried about the English with me lately.
No.
So what we decided is in the grade 11 show, Llewellyn pulled a bit of a surprise.
Yes. See,
Tell us about it.
What happened was, okay, I was inspired by this thing. I was looking on the internet and I've heard about a couple of things called this rack nomination thing. Right. Now, before I tell you what it is, okay, what actually happened is it comes from Australia, first of all.
Does
right?
anything good come from Australia? Anyway, okay, carry on.
Right. If I came from Australia, different story. But, right. They used to have the neck nominations there, and that was about drinking because neck meant drinking, right? So what actually happened is, it wasn't very good, but one of the Australians nominated a South African to do this, right? It was Brett. Hey, am I
I
right?
think that's right. I think
Brett.
that's right.
Right, so what Brett did was he had his friend, because you've actually got to film it, because you've got to post it, okay, to prove that you've done it. So what he did is he had a friend record this, and he climbed in his car and he was driving, and he said to his friend over this thing, he says, "Let me show you how South Africans do it." Right, now they're all worried about him drinking, right? Stops at a robot, leans to the back, takes out a sandwich, a chocolate, and a Coke, and gives it to the man on the side of the road, right? Because that's what South Africans do. We care about each other, right? And they've changed it now to rack.
Change random acts of kindness.
Here we go, random acts of kindness. So it's a beautiful thing, right? And it's not just us. It's walking down, just, you know what, even try it. Walking down the street with a sandwich or whatever, and go give it to somebody that's cold or whatever, just out of nowhere. And the nice thing is, Nando's have done it, right? And KFC.
KFC and F&B, and there are a whole lot of it's actually gone viral on YouTube. I want to show you where you can find more about it. You see, so here it is. Go to the Facebook page and you'll see there's Brett's little video, and he's even started a campaign called Change One Thing. Now, that's the challenge you're putting us.
Now, what I was that, right, before John knew about it, I stood up here and I was brave, right? And I nominated, a rack-nominated Mindset to join in. And they had 48 hours to reply or say, yes, they will do it. And I promise you it wasn't 15 minutes. And the door went down and I thought, oh, man, they're going to take me off here. I'm in trouble. And John's face was full of life and he can't wait to do it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we want to make a difference. So we're going to put our heads together. We're going to start planning. And you stay on the page and see what Mindset comes up with. Because I think it's going to be something really special.
I also do.
Yeah.
But now, the real reason why you're standing in front of your TVs, right? Take a guess what it's for, huh? Aslam.
It's Aslam and,
Right.
and grade 12s.
And grade 12. So what I'm going to do is, I think it's highly unfair that you get to be taught this perfect section. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you to Looney. She's going to be telling you about these beautiful things on her feet that she won't take off, right? And while she's doing that, I'm going to bring Aslam in here to get ready for you guys, right? What do you think?
All right. Yes, Mindset says I'm wearing tummy tackies actually, and I'm trying to, I really hope you guys could see, but all you need to do is caption the picture. We have a picture on our Facebook page with us wearing tummy tackies and we like holding our little feet there, and it's hashtagged walk together. So all you need to do is caption the picture, and then after that you need to get all your friends to like your comment. So you comment right under the picture, get as many friends as you can to like your comment, because what happens is the person with the most comment will win a pair of tummy tackies that I'm wearing. Like, we've got tummy tackies. It's not like I'm going to give you mine, obviously. But you win a pair of tummy tackies. And then we'll announce the winners on our Facebook page on Friday. Monday, we'll announce them on our live shows as well. So make sure, guys, you do that. It's very simple. On our Facebook page, all the information is on there. Now, though, we are going to take a break. We'll see you straight after this. Hello, Mindsetters, we're back and Aslam is in the building finally. Just to remind you guys, remember to hit us up on Facebook and on Twitter at LearnExtra. You can download your show notes, your videos, and the schedules on learn.mindset.co.za. Congratulations to Asatu. You have won yourself 110 Rand Vodacom airtime from the Test Yourself competition. All you need to do, Mindsetters, to stand a chance to win is download the show notes, fill in the Test Yourself competition questions, and then you enter the entry form, you submit that, and then you'll stand a chance to win. Entries do close at 10 p.m. and we'll announce the winners on tomorrow night's show. Aslam.
Hi, Looney. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Aslam?
Good. Mindsetters, sorry for the slight delay, but as I was talking to Looney earlier, telling her how sad it was to let go of my little granddaughter going back to the UK this evening. And traffic is crazy, the rain is crazy. So if you have your parents driving, tell them to be very careful on the road. You shouldn't be driving, you should be watching me now. Okay, what are we doing today? You've been waiting with bated breath for this topic, and fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure which is it, for you grade 12s of 2014, this section on reproduction comes very early in the year. Normally, this section comes in the third term almost, or the second term. However, because of the change in the way things are being mediated to you, reproduction is a bit earlier, so we're going ahead with that. So excited, I'm hoping you are, to get ahead with this topic and get some ways into this line. What are we going to do actually? First of all, we're going to look at the finding the male and parts and their functions. Specifically, remember I told you some time ago that although the reproductive system and other systems in the body have many parts, there are only certain parts that are prescribed in your exam guideline. And the exam guideline is the way to go to see what you need to know. Your textbook will have all the labels, but you need to focus on these ones: testis, epididymis, vas deferens, seminal vesicle, ejaculatory ducts, prostate gland, Cowper's gland, and the urethra, and the male parts. That's what you need to know there. And the same goes with the female, same story: identify and give the functions. Identify and give the functions. Of what of the female parts? The ovary, the fallopian tubes or oviducts, the uterus, the uterine wall, or the wall that is called the endometrium, the cervix, the vagina, and its external opening called the vulva. Those are the parts of the female reproductive system which you should be able to label and give the functions of. We move on there. Sorry. We move on. Let me just. Okay. We also want to identify and state the functions of the follicles at various stages of development. This is now in the. Remember, we needed to find out the ovary. Now, when we go into the ovary, we want to find out this of the ovary. Where the follicles, what are the follicles, what's their different stages of development, and up to the Graafian follicle, and when the Graafian follicle empties out and becomes the corpus luteum. We need to follow that history. And last but not least, list the main changes that occur in male and female characteristics during puberty. I've also added, because I found next week's segment obviously much more lengthy because there's more detail in next week's segment. So I've added a little bit here. When we're talking about puberty, we're also talking about the formation of gametes. So we're going to add that as we're doing that, because you'll see as we're going along, I've asked you to draw a diagram leading to the male sex cell and the female sex cell, or the male and female gametes, or the sperm and the ovum. So we're just going to talk, which is only one line, of how those things form. Okay? So that's what we're doing today. Quite a bit of work, as you can see. So let's look at the summary of what we are talking about today. Or let me go back, I think. The challenge question, obviously, for today. And this is already posted for you, the challenge question. The question is the total length of coiled seminiferous tubules in both testes. Both the testes have these tubules called seminiferous tubules, the total length of which is more than 1 kilometer. Wow! More than 1 kilometer. Look at my height. I was just heard today when they came to do the wellness at school, I'm 1.67 meters, not kilometers, 1.67 meters. Eh? And inside my body, 2 testes, they have seminiferous tubules, that if we take them and we stretch them out, they're going to be more than 1 kilometer. Wow, wow. The question there is, what is the significance of this? What's so good about this? Okay. The next question says, why do the muscles in the scrotal sacs? By the way, for those of you who haven't done the section yet or are not yet with it, the scrotal sacs, the sacs that keep the testes outside the body in the male. Why do the muscles in the scrotal sacs relax when the environmental temperature rises and contract when the environmental temperature decreases? Like the lower temperatures we've been having recently, the scrotal sac muscles, they contract. And when it gets hotter, the sun starts shining from tomorrow, hopefully, Looney, we see some sun again.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, it's like, well, the good thing is my granddaughter then got used to what she's going to be used to from tomorrow. That means she's only going to see rain and gray and more gray all the time.
Yes.
So here, she got used to that in the last few days. Now, coming back to that, so we want to know why, and I'm not going to explain what we mean when environmental temperature decrease or or increase. You should know that. You are sharp guys. Good. Are we there with that? Now let's look at what we need to do. And guys, this section, this whole chapter, and you're going to see next week as well, I've made a summary just with illustrations. Just by learning those, not learning, but getting used to those illustrations or diagrams, it tells you the whole story. So what are we looking at? First of all, the male reproductive system, and there's the side view. Again, if we start at the bottom, the scrotum that houses the testes, scrotum there, housing the testes, there. Testes in this area, this is one obviously, this is side view. From the testes on the top we have the epididymis, there's the label there, epididymis. From there running along is the vas deferens or sperm duct, an easier word. Going down we pass 3 accessory organs, and they are the seminal vesicle. Now notice we're getting the seminal vesicles there, which is an accessory organ. And in the testes we talk of the seminiferous tubules. Do not confuse these two terms. Seminiferous tubules are tubules that are found in the testes. The seminal vesicle is an organ, an accessory organ found much higher up. So there's 1. 2 would be the prostate gland. And 3, the third accessory organ, is this one's called the accessory gland. We call it the Cowper's gland. These are the different structures there. Coming closer, you'll find that the ejaculatory duct is in this area, and that will lead to there, the ejaculatory duct in this area, that will lead to this tube known as the urethra. And obviously the external organ of the male to deposit sperms into the female's body would be the penis. Now let's look at each of those things very quickly and their functions. The testes obviously produce sperm. There are other functions, we're not worried about that right now. The epididymis, they store sperms temporarily. The vas deferens takes sperms from there towards the ejaculatory duct. The 3 accessory organs, 1, 2, and 3, prostate, seminal vesicles, and the Cowper's gland, they all assist in adding fluid to the sperm and at the same time adding nourishment and adding alkalinity, alkaline substance into it. Why? Because when the sperm enters the vaginal area is very acidic. So to neutralize that acid, we must add alkaline to the sperm. Okay, so those 3 glands, they do that. The ejaculatory duct will obviously push the semen out. Now, we're talking about a different word now. We're talking about sperm, now we're talking about semen. Semen refers to the sperm cells in the seminal fluid. In other words, in the fluid that is added to the sperm cells as they pass through the ejaculatory duct, and the substances from seminal vesicle, prostate gland, Cowper's gland, all put in. That's known as semen. Remember, it is not semen. It is semen, not semen. No, semen. Okay, that's the name for that. Okay, and then obviously the urethra will be the tube that leads out of the penis and releases the sperm out of the body. Also note, and if you're a male, you should know this, that the urethra also helps to release urine from the body. One of my good friends, Hamida Musa, always says that is the only time, Looney, she says, and this is now a female talking, she says that's the only time a male can multitask. He's got one tube to urinate and deposit sperm at the same time. I'm saying the male is sharp, he knows what to do, but the woman must also know what's happening at what time, otherwise there'll be problems. So let's not worry about that now. Okay, are we happy with that diagram, I'm hoping? And notice we've done that. Now take a diagram like this, draw the diagram if you have to, and next to each of these labels, write a little story, small, 1 sentence, 2 sentence on the function. So that diagram gives you the whole picture. Instead of reading the textbook, the testes, there is a pair of testes. Inside there's seminiferous tubules. The testis does this and so on. Instead of reading all that information, simply do that with a diagram. And to make it simpler, the male frontal view giving you the same story, and we're not going to go into the details of this diagram because it's a repeating of what we did before, just to show you that this is the frontal, so it's showing you from the front, both sides now. That one was the side view. Good? Sorry, let's go back before we forget. Yep, if we take any one of those testes, just don't win with this. Okay, when we take the testes and we enlarge it, this is what we are talking about. Each testis is divided into several compartments. Each compartment is made up of folded tubules known as the seminiferous tubule. The wall that separates, just like in any other muscular organ or other organ, the wall that separates will always be called a septum. Okay? The whole thing is the testis, and there you have the epididymis on the top there, and leading out the vas deferens. And this should help you with that answer of the challenge question, the visual now on this. Good. Let's look at the female. With everything else where the females, Looney, are very difficult, learning the diagram of the female's reproductive organs is one of the easiest things to do. Yes. Much less complicated than the male reproductive system, but that's where it ends. After that, it's just trouble, and more trouble from women. Okay, so we're having here, the females have a pair of ovaries. 1, 2. The ovaries are surrounded by the fallopian tubes on either side. The fallopian tube is also known as the oviduct. And the job of the oviduct would be to move the egg from the ovary towards the uterus. The job of the ovary is to produce and release the egg, okay, and release hormones, as we will learn next week. This whole area here is known as the uterus. And the lining of the uterus, the lining of the wall of the uterus, is known as the endometrium. The uterus is also known as the womb of the female. This is where implantation will take place. Implantation meaning the fertilized egg will come and rest in this area for further development. And that is why we're getting a lining that becomes thicker and thinner, and we'll talk about that next week. Between the uterus and the vagina is the muscular walls of the cervix, which have an opening, and when these cervix muscles dilate, or rather they relax, to cause the area to dilate in that area there. And that leads to the vagina, that canal there, also known as the birth canal. Why? Because the baby comes out of that area. At the same time, the sperms are also deposited into the vagina. So it receives sperm, and it serves as a birth canal as well. Notice that the vagina, not like the urethra, the vagina accepts sperms and releases the baby. Urination does not take place through the vagina. There is a separate opening for that, known as the urethra. Just like in the males, there's a urethra, but here is a separate opening for accepting sperm and a separate opening for releasing urine. And the vulva is around there, the opening in that area as well. So we've covered quite a bit there, and obviously if we take the ovary, If we take the ovary, we will find that the ovary has different follicles. The primary follicle is the initial follicle. This follicle, from time to time, every month, one of these follicles will develop further into what we would call a growing follicle, secondary follicle, and then a Graafian follicle. A Graafian follicle is a name given to a mature follicle. In other words, a follicle with a mature egg in it. If this Graafian follicle releases the egg, then the remainder of this follicle becomes what we call the corpus luteum. So those are the things you need to know in the ovary. Obviously, the story of ovulation and later about the corpus luteum we will discuss in next week's lesson. So for today, this is what we have to focus on, and that little extra that I added we will talk about just after the break.
All right, Mindsetters, it's time to take a break. We'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Quick shout out to Kayam, Lori, Letukutula, Kenneth, Leroy, Charmaine, Zalda, Jonah, Alberto, Prishka, Sandile, Nganyi, So, Ndivo, Clint, Boitumelo, Rampia, Kamo, and yes, there was one man that said he's watching the show with some people. Yes, Alberta says he's watching the show with Tepo and Evan. So shout out to you guys as well. Thank you for tuning in. Aslam.
Thanks, Luni. Welcome back, guys. I'm hoping you had a rest, and I hope you looked at those diagrams in your textbooks and notes that you have. Now, let's just round up on this diagram that we were talking about before the break. Remember, it's representing a section through the ovary. The lining is called germinal epithelial, and from here we're getting the follicular cells. You must also understand at this stage that the number of follicles a female will have in her lifetime is determined at birth already. So when the female is born, the number of follicles she's going to have in her entire lifetime is already determined. In other words, Luni, we're saying that you are born with some stock.
Stuck.
when you reach puberty, then you start using the stock, one every month. Okay. And if you fall pregnant in between, then obviously your stock is being stored for 9 months, because during the 9 months that you are pregnant, then no more new follicles will develop. They'll just stay the way they are. Okay. I'm hoping that you have noted that as well. And that will tell you why women reach menopause at a certain age. You can do the research. We're not going to discuss it here at this forum. Okay, good. Now, what I've done also is we've got a nice picture to show you a mature ovary with the Graafian follicle there. Showing you the Graafian follicle that has been formed because the Graafian, not the Graafian follicle, sorry, the corpus luteum. What am I saying? The corpus luteum that has been formed because ovulation has taken place. Again, we're not going to go into the story about how the corpus luteum forms right now. We just know that there is a structure called the corpus luteum, and it is formed when ovulation takes place and the Graafian follicle is empty. How that happens, that's for next week, not for this week. This week, we're just dealing with the structure and how sperm and egg are formed. Next week, we go through the whole cycle up to and including giving birth. All right. Good. That brings us then to the second part of our story, and that is the questions. And how else can we question you than with a diagram and asking you labels and functions, etc. We can give you a diagram of the male parts only or the female parts only. I'm talking only on the section that we are doing right now. And ask you questions, or we could put them together and ask you comparative questions, you know, which part of this is similar to that, etc., etc., etc. So those are some of the questions that you can get in this area. So it says study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. So they're giving you a diagram, obviously, and they're telling you what that is, and I would be very concerned if they give you a diagram like this and they ask you to give a caption and you couldn't say that this is the male reproductive system. At your age, you should be knowing that already. So you should be knowing that. But nonetheless, that's not what they ask you to do. And next to it also, they've shown you the human sperm cell. We're going to talk more about the human sperm cell when we deal with the question dealing with that. All right. So they say provide labels for A, B, E, and G. A, B, E, and G. A, B, and E are on the human reproductive system. G is on the sperm cell there. So A, this one there, is that big gland just below the bladder, and that would be obviously the prostate gland. B, this is the tube that's leading from the testes upwards. That would be the vas deferens, or the sperm duct. And E at the bottom, that's the tube leaving the penis. That will be the urethra. Notice you must not confuse urethra with ureter. Ureter is the pipe, this one here, coming from the kidney to the bladder. That's the ureter. We don't have to learn it for this year. You would have learned it last year in excretion. But lots of learners, when they have to label this one, they confuse urethra with ureter, this one here. Okay? Urethra outside the body. Okay, good. And G in the head of the sperm, the biggest structure is known as the nucleus. This is the biggest part of, the most important part of the sperm as such, because it houses the nucleus, and in the nucleus we're getting the chromatin material, which obviously codes for the characteristics of the incumbent fertilized egg and embryo, etc., if it does happen. Good, so we are there. Prostate gland, vas deferens, urethra, nucleus. Okay, Aslam got 4 out of 4. That's not bad on a Wednesday afternoon. State 1 functions each, function each of C and F respectively. Notice respectively means the first and the second one after that, respectively. C first and then F. Alternatively, when you're writing it, write down C and give its function, write down F so you don't confuse the marker. So C and F we need to first find out. C is the epididymis there, epididymis, and F is this part on the head of the sperm, which we call the acrosome. Acrosome. Let's see what we're talking about there. And if you learnt your work, you would know then that the epididymis stores sperm temporarily. And the acrosome secretes an enzyme called the hydrolyzing enzyme, which makes the membrane of the egg penetrable. In other words, it allows the sperm to enter the egg, or permeable to sperm, we could put. So stores the sperm, contains them to break down the cell membrane of the egg cell to make it permeable to sperm. Okay, good. State the letter and name of the part where sperm are produced. That's easy, guys. That's the easiest question there. The letter, but what it's saying? The letter and the name. Many learners in the question letters, they give either the letter or the name, not both. You're losing one of the 2 marks. In other words, you're losing 50% there. And that would obviously be D, the testes. Okay, D, the testes, or more specifically, it would be the seminiferous tubules of the testes. Okay, but in this diagram, only the testes was labeled. Explain why it is necessary for part D to hang outside the body of the male. In other words, why must the testes hang outside? There's the scrotum there. There's the scrotum there. That one there, the bag. It's keeping the testes outside the body. Why is it necessary for that to happen? And the answer is simple. It's got to do with temperature. It keeps the testes at a temperature that is about 3 degrees lower than body temperature. Sperm production requires temperatures that are slightly lower than body temperature. So by the fact that the testes are kept outside the body, it is easy to keep the temperature of the testes slightly lower than body temperature, and therefore the sperms can survive. Name the following. The cells that secrete a male sex hormone, or the male sex hormone, that would be the interstitial cells or the cells of Leydig. It's not required in the syllabus, fortunately for you. You don't have to know the names of these cells. However, the next one you have to know, name the hormone that stimulates the development of secondary sexual characteristics in males. Now that would be, obviously, testosterone. And predict what would happen if label B is blocked for some reason. If part label B is blocked here. Let's say we had to block part label. If we only had to block label B, then obviously nothing would have happened, Looney. If you only blocked that, that means there would have been, the answer could have been that there's one less label on the diagram. But the question should be, what happened if there was a block here? In other words, somewhere there's a block. What was the purpose? Again, whenever you have a predict question, ask yourself the following. What is the function of this part? The function of this part is vas deferens, is to take the sperm from the epididymis, pass the ejaculatory duct, eventually joining up with the urethra to go out. So obviously, if it's blocked there, then sperms will not reach their destination. Okay, and this will then give the man problems with fertility. Any block in the vas deferens will not allow sperms to pass to the urethra and into the female, and thus no fertilization will occur. Doesn't mean no sperms will be produced, because the sperms are being produced in the testes. That still carries on, but the sperms won't reach their destination. That's what we are saying there. Good? Okay, and one question on the female. The following question, the diagram below shows the female reproductive. Study the diagram, which we have just done just now, and label structures A, B, and C. A, that one, fallopian tube. B, obviously the ovary. And C, here we could talk of the vagina. Okay, there we go. State 3 functions of D. What is D? D is the uterus. So what are the functions of the uterus? First of all, it encloses and protects the developing embryo or fetus. It forms part of the placenta, because part of the uterine lining and part of the chorionic villi together make up the placenta, which obviously then provides nourishment and gaseous exchange and excretion to the embryo. In other words, it's via this placenta, and which we will talk about next week, it's via this placenta that nutrition, sorry about that, nutrition it's via this area that nutrition, gaseous exchange, and excretion takes place. It allows for implantation, and that will go to the first function as well. It contracts during labor to push the baby out, in other words, to facilitate birth. Fertilization usually takes place at Y. Fertilization usually takes place there, in this area here. Okay, that's what they're telling you. And we'll talk more about that next week. But the question asks you, why would a blockage at X prevent fertilization at Y? Oops. So a blockage at X, there. Why will this prevent fertilization from taking place? Easy, just similar to what we spoke about in the male parts. Remember, the sperm is entering from the vagina, and the sperm moves in this direction, takes M1 or north, or it takes M1 south. Okay? And M1. Okay, so it can be fertilizing an egg around there or around here. Okay, so if there's a block here, that means the sperm won't go past. At the same time, the egg, it is released and it takes the slipstream here into the fallopian tube, and it moves up that way. The reason for this, by the way, sperm and egg move in opposite direction. The chances of them meeting are much greater. Imagine if the sperm and the egg were moving in the same direction. Hey, I want to catch you, egg. I want to catch you, egg. May not ever happen. If the sperm is slow, you snooze, you lose. Okay. Now, in this way, they are bound to meet even by accident. And many accidents have resulted in bigger things after that. Okay. We'll talk about that next week. All right. So obviously, then there won't be fertilization taking place there. And that's why, because the egg and the sperm would not be able to meet. And while we're doing that, not necessarily lead to infertility. At the same time, does it mean that this woman will never be fertile because of that blockage? No. Why? Because she has 2 ovaries. So while this one is blocked, the M1 north, M1 south is still open. While there's a traffic jam on this side, they have cleared up the debris and everything can move smoothly. So the egg can come up this way and a little spermicide may be swimming that way and they can meet there and fertilization can still take place. Remember, by the way, Looney, what happens in a woman, every month, one of these 2 ovaries will release an egg. So if this month is the left, next month will be the right. And so on, these 2 ovaries will alternate with each other. So notice, these questions are not that higher level order. They're simply checking whether you understand what happens there. That's all. It's not like it's need to be a rocket scientist to answer it. So the sperms will be prevented from reaching the ovum, prevents the ovum from traveling along the fallopian tube, and therefore it will stop fertilization at that point. It doesn't lead to infertility. It stops fertilization at that point. Okay? Why does it not necessarily lead to infertility? Because the egg produced in the other ovary can still be fertilized in the other fallopian tube. Good. Question 3, draw diagrams to illustrate the differences between a human sperm and an ovum. Now, before we talk about these diagrams, I want to just tell you how, first of all, what I added on. Remember at the beginning of the show, I added on that production of sperm and egg. We talk about gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the production. Genesis means production, synthesizing, producing, creating. So production or manufacturing of gametes. And by now, you should know from meiosis that gametes refer to sex cells. And we get 2 types of sex cells. We get those that are male and those that are female. So gametogenesis can be made for male, so that will be called spermatogenesis. And for the egg, oogenesis. Now, in the past, we needed to explain elaborate phases in spermatogenesis and oogenesis. For this year and for the next couple of years, while CAPS is in force, the learners only have to know a few sentences to explain what is meant by spermatogenesis and what is meant by oogenesis. And as soon as we come back from the break, we will answer this question and explain this. And there's one more question, and then we will go to the challenge, and we'll come back to your questions. Looney.
All right. Mindset is we are going to take a break, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindset is from the break. Hope you guys are still enjoying the show. So, Aslam.
Thank you, Looney. Thank you so much for that. Guys, just remember your questions that you post on the page and the questions that you send to us must be related to the work we're doing. Any others, talk to Dr. Ruth, okay? We're not in a position to answer some of your questions in that way. All right, we're coming back to this one here, gametogenesis. So spermatogenesis talks about the formation of sperms. This one talks about the formation of eggs. All we're saying here is that for the formation of sperms or spermatogenesis, diploid cells in the seminiferous tubules of the testes divide by meiosis to form haploid sperm. It's not as easy as what we are making it sound there. We've just watered it down, so that's all you need to know. The diploid cells in the seminiferous tubules divide by meiosis to form haploid sperm. With the egg, on the other hand, it's again, we start with the same sentence. The sentence stays the same. Diploid cells in the germinal epithelial in the ovary divide by meiosis to form ova. Again, it's a little bit more complicated, and we'll touch more on that as we get there next week as well. Okay, for now, let's go back to this question. You want to know, draw diagrams to illustrate the difference between a human sperm and an ovum. So the first one is the sperm, obviously, and there's a diagram of the sperm. The things that you need to know in the sperm, the labels, will be the head, the middle piece, and the tail, first of all. Then in the head, you just need to label the nucleus and the acrosome. The nucleus and the acrosome, all right? You need to know what the acrosome does. You must know that the nucleus contains the chromatin. And then in the neck, you must be able to know that there's mitochondria there, which help the sperm to swim, gives it energy. And obviously, it has a long tail, which is a propelling organ of propulsion. In other words, it pushes the sperm forward. The egg, on the other hand, there we have the egg, very simple to draw. You have a membrane on the outside. Then you have a membrane just on the egg area there. Then you have a nucleus with the chromosome, and you have the cytoplasm with some yolk. And in between this outer layer and the inner this whole area here is a layer of jelly. That's all you need to know. It's a very simple diagram to draw. You must be able to draw these diagrams. I'm sure you've come across them in the exercises you're doing in class. Coming back to our challenge question then, before we move on. The total length of the coiled seminiferous tubules in both testes is more than 1 kilometer long. What is the significance of this fact? No, they must have posted some answers already for us, Luni. Yes? They must have, yes? Okay, so let's see if your answer is correct. The folded seminiferous tubules increase the surface area for the production of sperm. This is a structural suitability question. In other words, they could have told you how is the testis structurally suited to its function. Then you would have said that the seminiferous tubules are folded to increase the surface area for the production of sperm. So it's another way of asking the same question. Good? Why do the muscles in the scrotal sacs relax when the environmental temperature rises and contract when the environmental temperature decreases? Not much in the syllabus, but by inference, because they're telling you in the syllabus that the scrotum houses the testes outside the body to keep the body temperature lower, the testis temperature slightly lower than the body temperature. That will tell you that if the environmental temperature rises, then the muscles will relax so that the scrotum moves further away from the body. So it gets less body heat. And when the environmental temperature drops, then it contracts and pulls into the body, so it stays closer to the body, so the temperature is still maintained in the way it's supposed to be. I'm hoping you caught that one. Okay? Muscles contract to pull the scrotum closer to the body on cold days, while they relax so the scrotum moves further away from the body. On hot days, obviously. This has a thermostatic effect. Sperm development need temperature that is slightly lower than body temperature, approximately 34 to 35 degrees. Some textbooks may even say 33 degrees. Okay, good. Why are we going backwards? And that's where we want to be. Okay, question 4. State the term used. Now, this is a bit of an extended writing. Not an essay, extended writing. State the term used for the time of life when a person becomes sexually mature. That period of time when the person becomes sexually mature. Name this thing, this concept. Also describe features in males and females that are indicative, oh wow, heavy language here, indicative of them reaching sexual maturity. So in other words, this period you're talking about, when males and females get there, what in their bodies will tell you that they are there? So first of all, when you're reading something like this, you need to understand what it's asking you, underline the keywords. For example, in this particular case, you will underline when a person becomes sexually mature, and describe features in males and females that tell us that they're reaching sexual maturity. That's the first thing you need to do when you get to an answer like that, a question like this. Then you need to take it a step further and answer the question. You can plan if you want to, write a few points, and then elaborate on that. Remember, you don't get marks for planning, but it's nice that, and your planning will be evident in your answer. Your answer will show whether you've planned or not. If you're writing haphazardly, it will show that you didn't plan. If you write in a nice logical sequence, it shows that you're flowing. That means your answers are in cahoots with what you said. Okay, so in females, first of all, we name the thing. And what is that thing called? Oops, it's called puberty. Is that what we are talking about? When males and females become mature, they have reached puberty. And in females, it's the appearance of pubic hair and some facial hair. Body becomes curvier and hip bones widen. Why would the hip bones widen? For possible pregnancy. They must hold the baby. So that is why the hip bones widen, okay? Not to become more curvaceous. Okay, there is weight gain, particularly on the hips. This does not mean that you have to start a diet to lose weight. In fact, you would be unhealthy if you did not put on some weight during this period. I'm not going to go into the rest of that there, right? The muscles get bigger and stronger, but they do not show as much as boys' muscles. They do get bigger, but not like the boys. And very conspicuous, the breasts start to develop. I'm not going to go into the details of that. And the first sign of puberty in a female would be her first menstruation. And next week, we're going to know the difference between menstruation and the menstrual cycle next week. Also, they may have some discharge, whitish discharge from the vagina before or in between periods. Again, it's just a way of the body to clean itself. Boys, in males, boys will gain weight. Their shoulders get wider to attract the females a little bit more, I think. Muscles start to get bigger and stronger, and some, they get so conscious about it, they join the gym, they want that six-pack, and they want that wide chest, you know. Appearance of Adam's apple, you know, Adam's apple, that one there, okay, the larynx, the voice box becoming larger and sticking out, the breaking of the voice, you know, you start talking all different types of things. Yeah. Okay, all of a sudden you start talking and then you see, hey, man, I'm squeaking and then I'm talking loud and then it's getting deeper and the voice becomes deeper. The growth of the penis and the testes, obviously. The breasts look like they're developing a bit, so don't be afraid, boys. If you see a little development around the nipples, around the breast area, it's normal as well. Pubic hair, also facial hair, more facial hair than in the females. Erections, the boys may start getting erections. By the way, boys can get erections even before they reach sexual maturity. It's totally normal for a young boy, 6, 7, 8, even a baby, to have an erection, by the way. Okay. You may also have nocturnal emissions, a very nice word for saying you have wet dreams. Okay. So those are some of the things that you will experience as you reach puberty. We have some time to take some of the questions. Very little time, but we have time.
Yes. Letugutula is asking, what are the main points describing the changes that take place during preparation of pregnancy?
Next week.
Next week. I had some here. Okay, let me check this side. Will I be penalized for using the word womb instead of uterus? That's from Devo.
Try to stick to the actual scientific words.
Okay. Mbumelelo, do males like females have a limited number of germinal epithelium cells from which the sperm cells are formed?
Sperm cells in a female. Is that what she's asking exactly?
I think no.
Ouch.
No,
Ouch.
Aslam.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. What's her name? No, let's not say her name now.
Okay.
Shame.
Okay.
It's a confusion. It's a little bit of stress. Okay. Maybe it's PMS. Okay.
Zabulal is asking if the sperm duct is surgically removed.
Let me answer that question first,
yeah.
right? It's not sperm, it's eggs that you want to know.
Yes.
It's not the germinal epithelial, but it's the number of follicles. The follicles are little containers in which the eggs are found already. They came from the germinal epithelium, okay? The number of follicles that a female will have in her lifetime is determined at birth.
Okay.
So it is limited.
Okay. If the sperm duct, this is Yabulel, if the sperm duct is surgically removed, is it possible for the male to transmit HIV?
If the sperm duct is
Surgically removed.
surgically removed, there may be a viral infection coming from the seminal fluid. Remember, if your sperm duct is cut, it simply means that the sperm cells, your live ammo, if you want to call it that, the fertility part will be blocked. In other words, the sperm cell, the live sperm cells won't reach there. But there will still be seminal fluid that goes out. There's still in erection. There's still ejaculation. A person can obviously have sex in that time. And if the virus then is transferred in that fluid, in the seminal fluid, it can be transmitted.
Okay, is it possible, this is from Leroy, is it possible for two sperms to reach the egg at the same time and fertilize it? If so, what disorder will take place?
Generally, it would be only the one sperm that gets there. Yes, obviously, two can get there at the same time. One will be discarded generally.
All right, no, we
Got
don't
it.
have time now.
Okay, the other questions, I'm sure you are so masters at this a section on sexual reproduction. You know your body well, so I'm sure some of these questions you are dealing with on your own, and obviously you're asking mom and dad for some of the things that you're not sure about in the changes in your body.
All right. Thank you, Aslam, for the great lesson. Mindsetters, thank you for tuning in. Remember, next week we have a brand new show, so don't forget to tune in. And from us, it's goodbye.